My first medical I did as a paper medical back in 1993. And then all the medicals I did after that were associated with me being an air crewman in the Navy and were done in the military. And then the next time I did a medical as a student pilot was in 2018 or 19. I can't remember. And it was electronic then. So it's been electronic for at least that long.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember when I had to like go to the doctor and fill out paper because student pilot's license used to be attached to.
That's right. It was on the back of your.
Yeah, on your back of your medical, and then they quit doing that once they did the plastic cards and stuff.
Yeah, and so then I was out of flying for decades, really.
Yeah.
So I joke saying that it took me 30 years to finish my private certificate, but it was really like I started in 93 and then I quit for a long time.
Yeah.
And came back to it.
So I guess we should introduce. This is Dr. Creig Shute.
Legally, it's Dr. Creig Shute. But
Creighton.
I go by Creig.
Creig, Creighton.
Hey, you.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
An AME, an Aviation Medical Examiner now.
Yep.
Just became one.
Certified by the FAA in February.
How long have you been an AME?
Since February.
February, yeah. You just said February.
I think that's the month. I went through their class in November, and then there was a couple of months there where I had to wait on some things, and then it was approved. I can't remember. It was whatever, in the last several months.
You had to fill out, I guess, an application to even
it was a
get them to look at you.
year and a half long process. Yeah. So you fill out an application. You have to become a physician first. That's an important part of it.
Well, I guess we should start with that.
That took a long time.
Yes. But you were in with the Navy, right? Navy
and Army. Yep.
Okay. Army and Navy. Which one first?
Navy.
Okay. Navy first.
Yeah. So 1993, I graduated high school. Originally from Opelousas, Louisiana, for anybody that's watching from out of state. Wanted to be a pilot, and so I went up to Natchitoches and was part of the aviation program there. Yeah.
That's where I went to.
The problem was I didn't have any money, and so there's a trifecta that you need to be a pilot: time, want, and money, all at the same time. And back then I had all the want and all the time and none of the money. And then as life progressed, I had less and less time, more and more money, and the want was waxing and waning.
Yeah.
Needed to mature a little bit, and so I went to a Navy recruiter's office. I don't normally tell this story publicly, but since we're here, I'll tell you.
Okay.
But I'll tell all of you guys.
Yes, everybody.
I slept through my first midterm, my first semester in college, and woke up. And the shame of that is that I'm a morning person. Like my wife will tell you that I'll wake up at like 5:30 a.m. every morning, just
ready to go.
It doesn't matter how late I stayed up. It's crazy. I can't help myself. And I slept through a midterm when I was 18 and was sitting on the side of my bed thinking, I need to do something else. I'm not mature enough to be here. And so I asked one of my neighbors in the dorms to give me a ride over to the recruiter's office. And when we got in the parking lot, I was like, hey, man, I'll see you later. I'll get a ride back. And he's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm good. And so I walked into the Navy recruiter's office because my dad had been in the Navy during Vietnam and he'd always talked about that. And so, I don't know, the Navy just seemed like the right choice for me. I didn't even talk to any other recruiters. I walked in and said, hey, my name's Creig Shute. I think I'd like to join. And then I just kind of never said the word no after that. Next thing I know, I was in the Navy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it was months later. It wasn't like the next day, but he was like, okay, well, do you want to take a practice ASVAB? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then he's like, do you want to go to MEPS tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And it was kind of like that.
Next thing you know, you're a doctor.
Yes, and then just luck of the draw.
That's how it ended up. Yeah,
blink my eyes. Next thing you know, I'm a doctor.
No, what'd you do in the Navy when you first got in?
When I went to MEPS, like I was a recruiter's dream. They were like, "What?" I was like, "Whatever you tell me to do, man, I'm just going to do that." And my recruiter, God bless him, didn't try to push me into anything, that they were like hurting for. He was just like, "Hey, go talk to the detailers at MEPS and see, what they have to offer." And so when I went to speak to the detailer, I'd already sworn in, I'd already done my physical and everything. And back then you would go and speak to what they call a detailer, and they had like a DOS program on an old big tube computer. And this lady says, "So what did your recruiter promise you?" And I said, "Nothing." And she said, "What job did he promise you?" And I said, "Nothing." And I had a really high ASVAB score. And so she's like, "Well, with your ASVAB score, you don't know what you want to do." And I said, "No, I don't know what the Navy has to offer. I just need to, I want to go to boot camp. I want to get out of here." She said, "What are you interested in?" I said, "Well, I'm interested in airplanes and scuba diving and I'm an athlete." And she said, "What about becoming a naval aviator, an air crewman and a rescue swimmer, jumping out of helicopters and saving people?" And I'm like, well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
And so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And so that's the contract I got was for air crew. I then went to boot camp that summer and got out of boot camp, went to training in Pensacola, went through air crew school. It was tough training, but relatively easy. And then went on to rescue swimmer school, which is really hard training, and went through that program. And there back then the military was downsizing, and so there were several helicopter squadrons that had gotten closed down, and so we got stuck on build up for a long time. And so I was in rescue swimmer school. You're only supposed to be there for like 5 or 6 weeks maximum, and I was there for like 8 months. I kept getting backed up in training. Like people that were coming out of previous jobs in the Navy had, I don't know what you call it, precedence for classing up and getting through class and going back into the fleet and working. And so those of us that were fresh out of boot camp kept getting backed up. And there was a time when there was like, we're supposed to have like 40 or 60 guys on buildup waiting to get into a class. And at one point there was like 300 of us waiting to get in.
Wow.
And eventually I was just like, I'm done. Like, just let me go do something else. And so I ended up I don't want to get into the whole detail of it, but I got into P3 Orions, which is a big plane that hunts submarines. And I was a radar operator on those planes. And I got about 1,000 hours riding in the back of P3s. Went all over the North Atlantic and went all over the Caribbean and deployed to Bosnia twice while I was doing that. And the cool thing about that plane is that I was in the Navy, I was on sea duty, but it's too big to land on a carrier. And so I was on, quote unquote deployment in the Navy, and all the Navy guys are going to be pissed when they hear this, but like we stayed in like hotels and barracks and made per diem every day. And so like it's
you had it nice.
Hands down the best duty in the Navy.
Yes, you had it
hands
nice.
down. So anyway, I got out in 98 and then I was looking at undergrad programs, and my plan was to stay in Florida. And then I found out how expensive out-of-state tuition was. And I thought, boy, I should probably go home and get me some of that good in-state tuition. And so I goofed around for about a year, got into bartending and restaurant jobs and stuff. And then in 2000 started at UL and was at UL from 2000 to 2004. And then I met a girl from Scott. And, if you meet a girl from a place, you're probably going to end up living in that place.
Yeah.
And so met a girl from Scott, and she's now my wife. We've been married now for 20 years. We have 7 children.
Wow.
We had 6 the last time we talked.
Oh,
A
yeah.
year ago, we had a surprise baby. And that's been awesome. Then went on to medical school. I went to a private medical school in Georgia, an osteopathic program there. And we started having children while we were in medical school. And before med school, I had a Navy scholarship all lined up. I was going to go back into the Navy to pay for medical school. And my wife was not happy about the idea of going to the military. In her mind, it was like, we're
moving around and
giving
all
up
that.
all of our freedom.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much the moving around. It was just like, they're going to control our lives. And, people's idea, people that have never been in the military think that like, everything is like a Vietnam movie or boot camp or whatever, and it's not like that at all. But so anyway, I let the Navy scholarship go. And then my 3rd year medical school, we had our first baby and finances fell apart. And she's like, hey, tell me about that military thing again. So I called the Navy, and they basically said, look, we'll pay for the last half of your 4th year medical school, but we have a minimum 3-year payback. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a good deal. And so I said, I'll call you back. And so I called the Air Force, and they gave me the same answer. And the Army was like, no. So this is like 2008, 9, when things are going hot and heavy in the Middle East. And the Army was like, oh no, we'll take you.
Yeah.
And we'll give you a full year of scholarship. Plus we'll backdate everything to today. So you get a little bit of your 3rd year paid for, and we'll give you a $20,000 sign-on bonus. And so I thought, well, I guess I'm a sailor wearing green. So that's how I ended up serving in both the Navy and the Army. So anyway, Army for 5 years, got out.
Were you deployed anywhere?
No, I never deployed. So I was with the hospital in Fort Bliss, then the hospital at Fort Benning, which is now Fort Moore, in Georgia.
Yeah.
And that was through my residency training. And then we continued to have children, and had our second while I was an intern, and then had our twins right at the end of residency. We were looking at different job opportunities in the Army and places that I could potentially go. And one of the places that I was kind of on a short list for was this clinic in Belgium that apparently is right at the base of the Alps, and it's like a 2-hour train ride to everything in Europe. And
that sounds
I
cool.
Would have been an OIC of this
yes
of this clinic in Belgium, and then we found out we were having twins, and we thought it might be a good idea to get closer to home. And so I called my detailer and I said, sir, I know that you guys are writing orders right now, and I have the potential for going to Belgium and all, but I really would like to go to Fort Polk. And there's this long pause on the other end, and he said, "Shoot, did you say pulp?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, sir." Yes, sir. He said, "Do you know where Fort Polk is?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Why do you want to go to Fort Polk?" And like Army guys know, like historically Fort Polk has been like, it's called, what is it, Fort Johnson now?
Yeah, Fort Johnson.
It's historically been like the place that people don't want to be stationed. It's out in Leesville, and there's nothing. It's there. An hour and a half to everything, and there's nothing there. And
still closer though.
It is closer to home. Yeah. And that's what I told him. I said, "Listen, sir, we just found out we're having twins. This is baby 3 and 4 in 4 years. And we think it would be a good idea to get close to my mother-in-law and my family." And he's like, "Okay, great. You're going to Fort Polk." I said, "Hey, I hope I'm not like causing any problems." He's like, "Oh, no. The next phone call I make is going to make somebody's day, because
they need people who want to go
You're taking somebody else's spot there."
Yeah.
And so I did my last 2 years at Fort Polk, and I just happened to be the brigade surgeon for a brigade that actually doesn't exist anymore, but didn't deploy. And so I just ended up never getting called. I was available. I just didn't get called to deploy. Yeah. It was an awesome time. For career purposes, like the Army was an awesome experience for me. So anyway, I got out, came home, did some ER work.
Yeah. So that at that point you're a doctor.
Yeah. So all through the Army, I was a physician. Yeah.
Okay. And then you worked at the ER, you said?
Yeah. So I had done some part-time ER work while I was in the Army. 1 or 2 weekends a month, I'd come down to Lafayette and work some ER shifts. And when I was getting out, I was looking at opportunities. Interestingly enough, that girl from Scott was ready to move back to Georgia or other places. We were looking at places outside of the state. And then I'd been working for Schumacher, and they called me and said, "Hey, listen, if you stay in town, we'll offer you this medical directorship." I was really early in my career. I thought, I can't really turn that down.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's how we ended up staying in Lafayette, which has been a blessing. Like, I'm really excited. Happy now that my kids are being raised here and experiencing the culture that I grew up in.
So you recently had another one, right?
Yeah, a year ago.
That's the one I was thinking of. Okay.
Yeah, a year ago. We had 6 and 7 years. It took us a little while to figure out what was causing them. We figured out. I went through all those classes in medical school, and now I know it's margaritas and back rubs.
Okay.
So then we had a 9-year break, and then a surprise a year ago, and man, it's been awesome. I wouldn't change anything. Most people freak out when they hear that I have 7 kids, but like,
yeah,
I love it. I wouldn't change anything about it. Anyway, did ER work, and then eventually found my way back to general family practice. Worked with Lafayette General for 3 years. They were starting a concussion program at the time, and because of my background in traumatic brain injury management in the Army, I was a good fit for that position. And so
I would hope so.
I ran their concussion program for 3 years, and we took care of student athletes around Acadiana. And that was a cool experience. But over time, I got disillusioned with people being in the way of my treating my patients, whether it was the third-party payers, insurance companies, that kind of stuff, Medicare, Medicaid, or administrators in the hospital. And God bless them. I'm not trying to like knock on hospital administrators. They're running businesses. But from a doctor's perspective, I want to be able to take time with my patients and be able to take care of the things that they need. And it became harder and harder and harder. And it's getting worse and worse and worse for people that are in that system. And so I learned about this concept of direct primary care, a membership model for healthcare. And so I started Acadiana's first direct primary care practice in 2018.
Okay.
Closed my practice with Lafayette General and started the practice here.
There's a bunch of them around the country, right?
Yeah, there's somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000. It's hard because we're all independent physicians and kind of working independently, so it's hard to really know exactly how many there are. But there were about 300 doctors around the country that were doing some version of this when I first got introduced to it.
It's grown a lot then.
Oh yeah, we're probably even guessing at 5,000. That's probably a conservative number. It's probably more than that now.
Wow.
And how long has it been?
It was first started and called direct primary care in 2010-ish.
Okay.
There are people that have done membership model versions of healthcare prior to that.
Gotcha.
And there are people that have done concierge medicine, which is like, historically, concierge medicine is, wealthy families that can pay a doctor a lot of money to keep them on retainer. And sometimes it's, $5,000 a year, which is not astronomical, but sometimes it's $50,000 or $100,000 a year, depending on where you are in the country. And then there are concierge models where you pay a third party company that kind of manages the concierge practice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some of those here in town. I don't want to mention them because I don't want to speak badly of them, but
So it's been that community has been trying to figure out this for a while.
yeah, how do we figure out a way for doctors to,
For it to feel like you have a personal doctor,
Yeah.
but not pay the $100,000.
yeah, right. I mean, so I had been introduced to the idea of concierge medicine when I was in medical school, but they were just really expensive. The relationship between the doctor and the patient had been really good. And the really cool thing that I noticed in those situations is that the community of patients who all kind of felt like they had this exclusive thing had their own relationship that gave a lot of third-party credibility to the doctor in the way that they were doing things. And there were a lot of neat things that I saw when I was introduced to those things, but I always thought, like, I can't bring that to Lafayette, Louisiana. Like, I'm not going to find 100 families that are willing to pay me, whatever the number
Enough
is,
to make it,
$10,000 a year to. So anyway, when I found out about direct primary care and the way they were doing things, I thought, oh, that makes sense. It's, we charge patients less than $100 a month for unlimited visits and unlimited access. Yeah. And then we also dispense medications directly from clinic at cost. We do labs directly from clinic at cost. And so, a patient who's on lisinopril for blood pressure and a member of mine, we dispense that medication for 73 cents a month.
Golly.
Like the whole month of medication for 73 cents.
Well, how much would it be compared to?
Well,
can you compare it?
There's the magic of how the healthcare system works today. If you go to some pharmacies, it's $4 for the month. If you go to the same pharmacy and you hand them a insurance card that has a contracted $8 copay for generic medications, you pay $8 for that medication. And if you go to a pharmacy where you don't hand them an insurance card at all, and you don't ask them for a cash pay discount, or you don't ask them for the GoodRx discount or whatever, then you could pay $20 a month for that medication. And you never know unless you know how to ask.
Yeah. Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah. The system is really in a bad way right now, and people are starting to recognize it. And so what we've done is we just decide, like, whatever we pay for it is what we're going to charge for.
Yeah.
Just because we're profitable with our membership. And so we want to make our membership as valuable as we possibly can. And so lisinopril is 73 cents a month in my office, and a week's worth of Bactrim, which is an antibiotic that we use for like skin infections and UTIs and things like that, is like 85 cents for a week's worth of Bactrim.
Golly.
And you don't have to wait in line at the pharmacy either, because you get it directly from us. And so I joke all the time about Cialis being really cheap in our office. In fact, we have I was telling somebody on another podcast, we have a joke that we do with this presentation that we do to kind of explain the business. And we'll say that, like, Celexa, which is an antidepressant medication, is like, I don't know, 57 cents a month or something in our office. But we also offer Cialis, and Cialis is only like 22 cents a tablet or something. And so if we put if we put the husband on 10 tablets of Cialis a month, then the wife doesn't need her Celexa anymore either. But it's a bad joke. But
so it's a different concept where you can
and that
have
savings,
that personal care.
That savings, as far as the financial savings, an annual set of labs that we do could cost you anywhere from, and again, it's just like medications, could cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 in what we would call a comprehensive set of labs. But we've negotiated down the prices, and we charge what we get charged for the labs. And so our patients pay $150 for that same set of labs. That's just the financial savings. And we do that with medical equipment, things like crutches and braces. And we don't charge anything for stitches, and we take care of fractures, included in membership, that kind of stuff. But the convenience of it, my patients all have my cell phone number, can call me or text me anytime. We take care of a lot of things over the phone. So, a mom who calls me in the middle of the school year saying, little Johnny is 8 years old and he has a cold again, and I know it's just a virus and it, just has to run its course, but I need a school excuse because he's been sick for the last 2 days and I'm bringing him back to school, and I forgot to call you about the school excuse. Instead of me saying, like another office might say, hey, you got to come in and see me face to face so that I can do all the paperwork and get your insurance to pay me for some time. Yeah. Instead, it takes me 30 seconds to type up a school excuse and email it to them. And if they're in the car line, like before they drop their child off, it's already in their email inbox. Yeah. So there's convenience things like that. Again, somebody over the weekend cut his finger with a chainsaw on Sunday and was able to call me. It was just a little nick, you know.
It wasn't the whole finger.
No, it was very mild, very mild.
Bring your
injury,
finger
but,
in on ice.
Just cut your finger off and call the doctor.
Yeah.
What do I do? Well, this you need to come in for.
Yeah, but we were able to do a video call and make a decision on what we're going to do. And
nice.
In that scenario, if we do stitches or whatever, I just meet him in the office and take care of it. And it doesn't cost him anything extra.
That's good.
Saves him the $1,500 ER trip.
Yeah.
And he can almost come in right away, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
depending on.
if it's a real emergency, like if you cut your arm off, call me on the way to the ER. You're not coming to my clinic for that, you know. So there, you have to know the difference between emergency needs and urgent needs.
Yeah, it's nice that personal care, because I mean the ER is not that you
Not
don't get
personal
that.
care,
You
yeah.
don't
Right.
get that personal care. No.
Yeah, I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, it's an emergency room.
Yeah.
They're there to treat emergencies, and so they're there to make sure you don't die from whatever it is you have. And so they're just trying to. That's what they're there for. That's what they're there for. The system gets overwhelmed with people that aren't there for emergency purposes,
Yeah,
and
that
so
makes sense.
The people that could be going to a walk-in clinic or something, or go see you,
or should
know?
be seeing their primary care
Yeah.
doctor, but they can't get into the primary care doctor because the primary care doctors are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because they're having to see tons of patients a day, and they're spending 90% of their time doing administrative things. And, you know, we've just eliminated all that in our practice. But I am an AME, and that's really what we came to talk about.
Yes, February. So you've been an AME, well, not quite a year yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not even 6 months.
Yeah. What was the process of going through to getting that?
I had to decide that I was finally going to become a pilot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
And so-
right.
First of all,
Yeah.
That took a while too. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1993 to 2018, whatever that gap was, started. I realized there was no way I was going to have the money to be able to fly like I needed to be able to get my certifications back when I was 18. So then I joined the Navy. I flew. I got about 1,000 hours in the back of a P3. And as a radar operator, so anytime the P3 was flying, there had to be a radar operator on board. And so every qualification flight, every new pilot, onboarding where they had to go and do stall training and
you were sitting in the back,
I had to be
hanging
sitting
on
in the back for all that stuff. And so we
Yeah.
used to sit back there with Walmart bags hung over our ears, just they would calibrate all the electronics and equipment on board, and so they'd have to do yaw and pitch and roll motions for long periods of time. And I'm sitting back there in a tube, with nothing to look at, doing all that. And so
Never got sick, huh?
I got sick all the time. That's what the Walmart bag was for. Yeah, that turned into kind of an irrational fear of flying, or fear of like what I would have to go through in training, really.
Yeah.
Like knowing that I was going to have to do stall training and I thought I was going to have to do spin training and that kind of stuff. And I think you mentioned it on one of your videos recently, or that guy with the red coat that does your
the red coat guy? Yeah.
Talking about
we love him.
stalls.
I think he's
Stop
retired.
freaking out and just fly the plane.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was the guy that was freaking out. And so I really kind of kept kicking the can down the road because I was like, man, I don't want to be in that uncomfortable situation.
So
but I always had the want.
Did that video scare you? It helped a little.
Well, that video
It
was
was just a
long.
video.
I've long since
He's
put
been a
that to
pilot
bed.
for a while now.
That's true. Yeah.
2018, I just put my foot down and said, look, it's time for me to start doing this. I have the time. I can pay for it now. And I've always had the want. I just needed to get over that fear. And so I had to force myself to, like, sweaty palms and all, just go flying. And so I think I called you back then. You and I talked on the phone, and I don't remember why. Maybe it was just because you were in New Iberia, or because
That's probably it. That's probably because
but I mean, I went all the way to Jennings to fly, so I don't remember why I didn't fly with you back then. But one of my dad's friends, they have a maintenance shop at the hospital in Jennings, and they bought a Piper, and they had a lady from Eunice that was training out of that. And somehow I guess the connection between that guy and my dad, I ended up talking with her, and so I flew not a lot, 8 or 12 hours or something. Kind of got started, got scared a bunch, while I was doing that.
So it wasn't better than you thought.
Yeah, we had whatever. I was just too nervous and too tense. I needed to relax and get over it. But I needed to like fly a bunch to get to that point. So I stopped flying with her, and then eventually started flying with you. and then you broke your ankle.
Oh yes, that's right.
And so then
that's my ER experience.
Yeah. And it grounded him. And so then he's like, I'll let you fly with one of my other instructors. And I think at the time it was like, if I'm going to go fly with someone else, I need to maybe shop around and find somebody. I wanted to find somebody that I thought would like match with my personality. Yeah. And what's funny is I do want to tell this part of the story just because I want people to be open-minded about this idea of like who your instructor might be. When I got back to it 2 years ago, my medical was about to expire, which we can talk about that stuff too. And I thought I need to knock these hours out because I don't want to my written was about to expire. That's what it was, not my medical.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to take the written again. And so I started calling around and I found out about this brand new instructor at another flight school that had like just gotten her instructor certificate. And she didn't have any other students. And so she would be able to fly with me 5 or 6 days a week and whatever. And then I found out like not only is she a brand new instructor, but like she's brand, like just had barely enough hours to be an instructor.
Oh, really?
And let me tell you, no offense, Ryan, but she ended up being the best flight instructor I've ever had. And mostly it's just about personality. It's not about how great she is as a pilot. It was just like her personality and my personality matched. She was very calming. And so anyway, the point to that story is just to say that like, be open-minded about the instructors that you might have that you get assigned to. And
even though they're brand new.
Yeah. Even though they're brand new or they look like some, old crotchety guy that might keel over and die in the plane, whatever. Like, be open-minded because that, your instructor's personality is as important as their skill in the plane.
Yeah. Don't feel like you're forced into a certain instructor at a certain school.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, shop around a little bit. Ryan's got a bunch of different instructors, and so as mean as he is an instructor, he's got some other folks that are pretty nice.
That's right.
That's just the guy in the red coat.
That's not me.
Yeah,
that's not me. That's somebody else.
So anyway, finally got my private certificate done, and then
so you got your license.
Got my private certificate, and then thought, it would be fun to be an AME, and we only have a couple in town. I wonder if, I wonder how hard it is to become an AME. So yeah, I did my check ride, and then
you said there were only a couple in town or close.
Yeah, 2 or 3 in town before me. I think maybe there's in Lafayette. There's me and Dr. Stafford. Maybe there's one more. I can't remember.
Belvedere,
but he's in Broussard, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They're locally. They're still local, but. And Dr. Belvedere had taken over for Dr. Sibelia.
Yeah. And then Jenkins.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Jenkins. So it's myself, Dr. Stafford, Dr. Jenkins in Lafayette, and then Dr. Belvedere is in Broussard.
Gotcha.
I think those are the 4 local AMEs. And only Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Stafford are senior AMEs, and so they're the only guys that can do first class medicals. But
okay.
We can get into that. But
that's an interesting topic.
It's a good thing to know about. But so I did my check ride with Peyton, and worst weather day of my flying career to date.
Oh no,
we had 19 mile an hour, 90-degree crosswinds.
Oh no,
yeah, and he was awesome about it, and said that he was awesome about it because I was a good sport, willing to take it on that day.
Hopefully you did good landings.
How many go-arounds?
How many go-arounds?
We had 3 or 4, whatever, how many landings, no go-arounds, but we had all perfect landings.
Yeah.
You know what perfect landings are?
So
there's 3 different types of landings. So a good landing is any landing where
you walk away from.
Everyone gets to walk away.
Yeah.
A perfect landing is any landing where you get to use the plane again. And everybody knows what a bad landing is. And so we had 4 perfect landings. That's all that matters. The plane didn't break, and he said I didn't scare him. So
okay, good.
2 good things.
They weren't my best landings, I'll say that. But I thought, let me see what it takes to become an AME. And so I put in my application, and then it's a long process after that. A lot of paperwork, a lot of online study stuff.
You had to go to a school,
and then I had to go to Oklahoma City and go through a week-long indoctrination, by the FAA, take an exam at the end of that week. And then it felt like there were several weeks after that before I got my actual designation and could actually physically see folks and start doing exams. And I think that was back in February. So less than 6 months ago.
And you've been pretty busy with just that? I mean, have you had a lot of
not aviation? A ton. Okay. Yeah, not a ton. We don't advertise it a whole bunch.
Yeah. I mean, you could go online and look, find AMEs in Lafayette.
Yeah, and there's Like I said, there's 3 in Lafayette and the 1 in Broussard. Maybe I'll bring you some rack cards. You can start handing them out, handing them out to your students.
If they were a member, would they get in faster than if they weren't?
Not necessarily faster, because we have daily appointments available, and so we only do them by appointment. And so if someone calls today and is a member in my practice and really has to have their medical done today, I'll figure it out so that they get taken care of. If somebody's not a member in the practice, it's probably going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen today.
Yeah, still not like.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. It's not like weeks from now. Right. And I think all the AMEs in town are pretty accommodating. I think that at Dr. Belgadere's office, you don't even need an appointment. They do them like Monday through Thursday, or maybe Monday through Friday. Yeah, he's got a scheduled time.
Oh, cool.
Like 1 to 4. Yeah. And so you just walk in and they take whoever walks in. But we don't charge our members anything. So all of the pilots that are members in my office get their medicals done for free.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So become a member.
Become a member.
Ryan's wheels are spinning. Yeah, I take care of people's employees too.
Yeah.
They get great benefits.
Yeah.
So if you're an employee of Ryan Owens Flight Training, talk to him about Elite DPC membership.
Am I an employee?
So
no, you're a contractor. You're a contractor.
Contracted only.
I'm curious about the first class medical. So they only let certain doctors do the first class?
Yeah. So when you become an AME, for a minimum of 6 months, and then it's based on need after that. But for a minimum of 6 months, you are a junior AME or whatever. You're not a senior AME, whatever I don't know what the designation is. And you're only allowed to do 2nd and 3rd class medicals. You have to be a senior AME to do 1st class medicals. So only Dr. Stafford and Dr. Jenkins in town are senior AMEs and can do 1st class medicals.
Yeah.
But you don't need a 1st class medical unless you're going to the airlines.
Yeah. I mean, I get them, but I don't even really need one. I could just get a 2nd.
Yeah.
I could really get a 3rd because all I do is flight instruction, but I'd like to get a 2nd just in case I do some contract flying or whatever.
And if you get a 2nd, do some contract flying, and then that contract goes away, it reverts to a 3rd class anyway.
Yeah.
What's the difference in the actual exam? Nothing, huh?
We get a little more aggressive on the prostate exam.
Okay, good.
I'm just kidding.
I hoped you were kidding.
I've never had a prostate exam on a aviation medical, so this is a new thing.
We don't do prostate exams.
It's because you've never gotten a 1st class.
No.
That's why they call it 1st class.
I'm not getting it right.
Yeah.
Is there a difference though?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so if you're a certain age and you get a 1st class, you have to have an EKG done. Okay. The vision requirements are a little more stringent for 2nd and 1st class. The eye exam is a little more stringent.
Could Chris get a 1st class?
I think he'd have to jump through some hoops to get a 1st class.
Oh, because he had to jump through some hoops to get
to get his
3rd class?
3rd. Chris Sullivan.
He's a paraplegic.
Oh yeah. So
quadriplegic.
That's what I meant.
So there's something called a SOTA. There's something called a SOTA that's done.
Yeah.
Statement of demonstrated ability. That's done through the FAA, and I don't know right off the top of my head. I could look it up pretty quickly.
Well, I could tell you that like we had to do that with Brian, and Brian, because he's got one arm. So the FAA inspector came out and just rode in the back seat and we did maneuvers, but he wasn't checking to make sure. He just wanted to see if Brian can handle flying the airplane with his arm.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess it's the same with doesn't matter who it is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's SOTAs for all kinds of different things. I mean, it could be.
I know. I've heard of color blindness and that kind of thing.
Yeah, color blindness limits you to only flying during the day.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough to justify flying at night when we have, we need to be able to like recognize lights and identify taxiways versus runways and that kind of stuff. But and color blindness, that's an important thing to know about. The FAA came out with a new regulation this year. Maybe I'm off on the months. November, maybe. I know November is one of those months that I have in my head about what I was. Anyway,
that's when you finished
November.
Okay.
Oh, you're still trying.
Whatever. I don't know why.
He's fairly new at the AME thing.
It didn't occur to me that I was going to have to remember the exact date that I became an AME.
Ryan likes dates.
I just became an AME, and I didn't really worry about when it was. Because I was an AME when the new regulations came out for color vision screening in January. So it used to be that you just had those paper charts. You flip through the book and apparently they're all the same. Like if you get apparently they're all the same.
So if you memorize
that's
them,
right.
then, yeah,
And so
okay.
people were memorizing the colorblind.
I didn't even notice.
test.
Oh wow.
And so the FAA said, no, we're going to have an electronic version of that. And so there's a few different versions of those electronic tests that can be
Still
done.
the numbers in the
Yeah,
colored
it looks
circles.
it looks really similar. It's just done electronically, like on an iPad or a computer
Okay.
screen. And we have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for the program to have it. And so not every AME has it available to them. But the point is that if you've never had a colorblind test before, and I didn't know this, but apparently that maybe used to be the case for third class, because there are some third class folks that have come back around to redo their third class 5 years later with me, and there's not a colorblind test there's no proof that they had a colorblind test done by the FAA or by the previous AME. And so then I have to do it with this electronic version of it. But once you pass that once, you never have to do it again. So it's
okay.
And then if you've ever passed a colorblind test, so like for you and I who have already done
I've done a ton of them.
yeah, I mean, we do them every time really,
Yeah.
but theoretically, if somebody comes in, if you came in and did an exam with me, I wouldn't even have to, maybe I wouldn't even have to test your color blindness, or anyway, I certainly wouldn't have to worry about doing the new test.
Thinking back on it, Chris is a big advocate for
Color blindness?
hoping that no quadriplegic is a commercial airline pilot.
Oh, yes, that's right. We were talking about that. That's
So if
right.
they can't get a first class, he'd be applauding right now.
Yeah, because he said he would get off the
He
plane.
would roll off
if
the plane.
That's funny. So he has some limited upper middle.
Yeah, he can move his arms. He can't grip. So he can he has special controls that he can move the yoke, and
We still need to film a video of that because I still haven't seen it.
yeah, he can move the yoke.
He's got a whole
and
contraption.
He can with the rudders. He has a bar that he can goes down and moves the pedals. You pull it up or push it down, it moves left and right. I don't know which
That's
one.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories like that. That's cool. What else do you want to know?
That's how it ends. No.
Yes.
Hey, good story.
Good stuff. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's kind of a process, I guess, to get your AME license.
Yeah, some of the folks that I
AME.
went to Oklahoma City with said that it'd been like a 2.5 or 3 year process because the FAA said that they didn't need people in that area at the time, and so
Yeah.
they were denied a couple times. I mean, if they had told me no once, I would have just been like, I'm good. I don't need to
I mean,
I'm doing it for fun. It's just
Yeah.
fun to like have pilots come in and be able to talk about flying and talk about what their careers are, and or to talk about every now and then I'll have somebody come in who's a brand new student and they're like, I'm doing this, but I'm like really freaked out, and I'm like, sweet, I get to talk to you about my
Yes.
experience, because like now I can't get enough of it. Like
Yeah.
man, flying for me now is once I get to about 4,500 feet, for sure 5,500 feet, I can't, like my cell phone doesn't work anymore. And so when I fly from here to Austin, or I fly from whatever here to Jackson, Mississippi or something, at 7,500 feet, like my phone doesn't go off. Nobody can ask me for anything. It's just,
You just need to buy you a Cirrus.
it's
now.
pretty loud in the 182, but I have,
That
I have
Cirrus
noise,
has air conditioning
I have
too,
noise,
you
yeah, I
know?
have noise
Yeah.
canceling. I have noise canceling
They're kinda
headphones. So it's quiet. Yeah, no kidding. I told Ryan earlier we were looking at the twin engine that they're using for training, and I sat in it. And I'm like, I'm sitting in a relic. You ruined me, making me sit in a brand new Cirrus. Like, anyway,
It's your next airplane.
probably not, but maybe one day.
Y'all are both trying to sell each other on. Like,
It won't be a new one, Ryan.
It won't
Sorry,
be.
not anytime soon.
It's okay. I mean, the air
Unfortunately.
conditioner still works in older ones too. So
Anyway,
Ryan becomes a member. You buy
yes,
that's an even trade,
Then you
right?
buy-
oh yeah, that's a fair
you buy a
trade right
Cirrus,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
What'd they do up in Oklahoma City? What did y'all go over? Like,
It was just a week-long review of regulations and like how to do, like we all know how to do eye exams, but like what is the FAA really looking for and what do they expect? Or we all know how to do medication reconciliation, for instance, like to go through people's medications and see what they're taking and why, and whether or not those medications are working and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And
they went over like what you need to. It's like, because I mean, if you certain medications, you probably have to send it to the FAA.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah,
a guy
so-
reports that he's been taking?
It used to be that if you were new, like, so somebody has a low functioning thyroid and they end up on a medication called Synthroid. It used to be that the AME had to defer that exam and send it on to the FAA to have the FAA's endocrinologist look at it and say, yes, it's fine. They had to show recent lab work showing that they were controlled and those kind of things. Now they have something called a CACI, which is conditions AME can issue.
Yeah.
CACI. Conditions AMEs can issue, and that falls under the CACI regulations now. And so it was going over things like that, like, hey, these are all the list of the medications that AMEs can issue if you find that somebody has hypothyroidism, maybe newly diagnosed since the last time they had a medical, or if they've never had a medical before, as long as they come in with the appropriate paperwork. So that would be like, the recent labs from their primary care doctor, and then if they don't have those labs, then as AMEs, we can order those labs for them, or we can send them back to their primary care or their endocrinologist or whoever does the labs.
Yeah, because we'll have people who come in and they, go get their medical, and then the AME has to send it to Oklahoma City. Then usually they get a letter from Oklahoma City, and then might need multiple tests done, depending on what they have.
Again, it depends on the medication. Yeah. So, like psychiatric diagnoses are, everybody knows that if you say you're depressed, you're.
Or we get a lot of like ADD, now we see a lot of that where they took, I guess, Adderall or whatever the medicine is for it, and then that's a big deal.
Yeah, they can't be on. I don't think there's any ADHD medication that can be taken and be legal to fly.
Is there like a time frame? Like, say they took it when they were, like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. They
don't take it anymore,
right.
But it was just so.
I don't know that time frame off the top of my head, but almost everything is like that. Where I took something in the past, I don't take it anymore, but it's been so many years since then. Once it's been a certain amount of time, the FAA says, hey, that's not an active diagnosis anymore, and if you're otherwise doing well, and the AME doesn't find any reason to believe that there's a problem with you not being on that medication.
Yeah.
Well, so for instance, low testosterone is a great example. People that are on hormone replacement therapy, for whatever reason, they have low testosterone. If they are on testosterone pellets, I think it's disqualifying. If they're on injections, they have to be on injections for a certain amount of time and be stable. But again, there's some disqualifiers there. But if they're on a topical testosterone cream, for instance, it's no big deal. Like it's we can issue and it's fine. And it's because of the risks associated with those types of replacement therapy, risks of blood clots and risks of what happens if your medication's not available or, whatever. I'm just thinking of that one example of like, you have a diagnosis, there are all these medications that you can take for it. And one of those options isn't a problem at all.
Yeah. I know I did have a guy one time who had sleep apnea, and of course that makes sense. The FAA probably thinks that the guy might fall asleep in the plane, but he had to go through a bunch of tests, and then they restricted him for a year. But it goes by the date that he went and applied for the medical, and so by the time he got done with all the tests, it was about 6 months, and then and he was just doing it for fun. He just wanted to get his private license. So he ended up quitting because he's like, I don't need to go through all that stuff. I don't want to go through all that stuff again.
They have to have the diagnosis and then be on CPAP or whatever is recommended for their treatment, and show that they're compliant with therapy, and show that they have an improvement in symptoms, and they're doing.
Is there a surgery too? I think he was telling me that there was some type of surgery that kind of helps.
There's a surgery that can help with sleep apnea, and the surgeons are all going to hate me for saying this, but as far as I know, like long term, it doesn't eliminate it completely. Like,
hopefully surgeons don't watch this.
Yeah, there'll be some that'll fuss at me. Sorry,
we'll get it in the comments.
And maybe I'm wrong. Like, whatever. Comment on, on YouTube or whatever if you disagree. But anyway, and maybe it's awesome, and the FAA has decided that if you get the surgery, then you're good to go. But there will be a timeline from diagnosis to surgery to actually being able to get your medical.
Yeah, I think I remember him telling me that he would have been better, or the FAA would have said it was fine. Yeah.
But
whenever you come to get your medical, you need to fill out your MedExpress, right?
Please go to MedExpress first and come with your confirmation number and your photo ID in hand.
Don't just walk in the door and
man, multiple times now I've had people make appointments and show up at the office, and I'm like, hey, where's your MedExpress form? And they're like, my what?
What was that? Was that
Med what?
Yeah.
They don't even know what it is.
No, yeah. I mean, and those are students that I promise you their instructors told them and they were half listening.
See, we have in our brochure, we have the website for the MedExpress we try to tell them.
And they don't read that either.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
They hear medical exam and that's all.
Yeah.
Is it easy to fill out? Is it just a form?
Yeah, it's just, it's online, and you make an account and then you fill out the form and then you get a confirmation number and it's emailed to you and bring it to him, and then he checks you out and does the prostate exam and
no prostate exam.
no prostate.
Watch next week. The FAA is going to go, we got to start doing prostate exams.
Yeah, right.
Be an article about it.
Totally lost my train of thought now. Oh, once you have your confirmation number, then we just type that in on our end and it brings up everything that they've already entered into MedExpress.
So it's not they don't have to print it out or anything.
No, I mean, it'd be better if they came in with it, or at least that way we can confirm it, because sometimes they'll give us a confirmation number and it's not quite right. And so then we have to search them by name and we can find them, but as long as they've gone through MedExpress.
Just do the MedExpress.
Yeah.
Do the
Bring your
MedExpress.
confirmation number and your photo ID, please.
Do you have people in the lobbies sitting there doing their MedExpress?
Yeah, sometimes.
Some of the people you've had, yeah.
Sometimes when they realize they've got to do it, they'll do it on their phone. Most of the time, we just log them into the computer at the office and knock it out.
So what?
But I'm not going to put that in because then they're going to be like, I could just do it at the office.
Yeah, don't put that part in. Yeah.
Not always. Know this. If you come and you haven't gone to MedExpress, if I have time, I'll let you do it online. I'll do it on the office. But often we have appointments, coming up right after yours. And so we can't take a whole bunch of time. And so we may end up having you come back.
Yeah. Do your MedExpress.
We just don't want to waste anybody's time.
No.
Yes, that's right.
As far as the first class, though, that just depends on need and your time in doing it, right?
Yes. So I have to. I'm pretty sure I've been an AME for at least 6 months, and so I could ask the FAA. I could ask the FAA to make me a senior AME.
So it's not another test.
They would have to look at how many senior AMEs are in the area, how many first class exams those guys do to determine whether or not they think that there's a need for someone else in the area. Just because why would you saturate the area with senior AMEs, and then the guys that, guys like Dr. Stafford, who's been doing this forever, then he ends up not doing a whole lot of exams, and it wouldn't be right.
That makes sense. But it's not like anything. It's just they decide if you can or can't issue.
You would have to probably buy new equipment too, huh?
No, I mean, I can do EKGs in my office, and
I don't know if you got an EKG machine in there.
Yeah, not everybody does, I guess, but no, I can do EKGs in my office and all the things that are required for first class.
Yeah, blood pressure. Okay. All the random, all the doctor stuff.
You can check blood pressure.
I even have a stethoscope.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
I figured I'd ask these questions,
So yeah, then you ask the FAA to look at whether or not there's a need for a senior AME in your area. They do that, and they bless off somehow. I haven't gone through that process yet. So
I remember I got my I've been getting a first class, but that's before I turned 40. So I haven't gotten one yet after 40. I did an EKG when I was 35, but I haven't done another one yet. So I think that's just to get a base, is what they were telling me at 35.
Maybe. I don't know what they are.
So when things go wrong later, they know what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, they know what it's supposed to be. It starts beating all crazy.
One thing that's important to know is, let's say you're a brand new student pilot and you come in to get your first medical. Some of them will say, I just want to know that I can pass a first class. Well, if you're 25 years old, like the difference between the first class and the second class is not huge, except that the first class expires a little bit. Actually, I think they both expire within a year.
Well, they both expire a year, but till you turn 40, and then the first class is 6 months.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so then, at 40, you have to do them every or twice a year.
Yeah.
They're like, you're dying soon. We got to keep checking.
Yeah. Once you hit 40, it's downhill.
Most AMEs that can do first class charge a little bit more for them, so you're spending more money. And all you need to get through all your training is really, you have to show that you can pass a second class, and then you just need your third class to continue your training. You need a second class to operate as a commercial pilot.
Okay, yeah.
But you can do flight instruction with a third class medical. And so by all means, come to me and get your second class. And then after a year, it reverts to a third class anyway. And so if you're under 40, it lasts for 5 years. And then at some point, you're going to need to go and get, if you get your ATP, it's probably going to take you more than 5 years. Probably,
yes.
right?
Yeah, you got to have 1,500 hours, yeah.
It's probably going to take you, apparently some people do it faster than that, but it's probably going to take you 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, some people can get it done, go up to CFI in like 7 months or 8, depending on how fast you are.
I know there are like schools that claim like 0 to ATP in 2.5 years.
Brennan did his in 7 months, but he had it all spelled out.
I was going to say, Brennan did his. Brennan got to 1,500 fast.
Really?
Yeah.
2 years?
He keeps his schedule full.
Anyway, my point is that you could get a second class first.
Yeah.
And then later, when you get your job with the airlines, you're going to be making so much money at that point anyway. You can afford to do a second medical. Get your first class then. And hopefully by then I'll be a senior AME.
There you go.
Flight Tales, woo-woo.
If you've made it this far, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, we would just like to say thank you, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about today's episode or suggestions for future episodes, just leave a comment or message us, and we'll do our best to answer. If you'd like to check out some fun aviation videos, check out our YouTube channel at Owens Flight Training. Or if you'd like to get more information on becoming a safe, knowledgeable, and confident pilot, just head over to our website, owensflighttraining.com.